Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I'm Gunnar Eels, and welcome to another episode of the Logical Gamers podcast. Tonight I'm here with Mr. BlankaKong and Mr. Esoteric, and we're going to do a second installment of maybe potential ongoing series that I've kind of cobbled together called Elves in the Gaming World. We're still working on the title, so you'll probably hear different. If you like one over the other, comment, let us know. So, on that note, we have three L's for the gaming industry tonight to go over. I'm just going to quickly list them all. We'll go down the list and we'll talk, and hilarity will ensue. So, first article for tonight is PlayStation reverses course on removing Discovery content and issues a new deadline for when they're going to be removed. Second article for this evening is Starfield player base plummets around 90% in roughly 4 months after its launch. And a third article for tonight is Ghostwire Tokyo English subs quietly removes the saying all property is theft. So, we're going to start with the first article tonight, with PlayStation reversing their course on removing Discovery content and extending their deadline. So, for those who didn't watch our previous video about it, or may not know in general, a couple months ago, Sony kind of just hit their player base with a email stating that if you purchase Discovery content, for those that don't know, Discovery is like a channel, and it includes things like my six for those that watch it, like my 600-pound life, and various like documentaries and stuff like that, and various shows like it's like basically like I don't want to say normie content, but it kind of is. It's people like Discovery. It also has nature documentaries and whatnot, and animal, like kind of like Animal Planet type stuff. So there's different things for different people. But Sony basically hit people with a bombshell that if you've bought this content, tough shit, you no longer own it. They are, due to a licensing uh expiration, as they said, this content was being removed. You could no longer purchase this content. You can no longer download this content. And what's worse, if you've already purchased it, you cannot watch it. So you literally spent money for content to be taken out of your library and thrown away. So the end point of this is that Sony, in their good graces, reversed their decision, and this this change was supposed to come at the end of the year. It's no longer happening, and their quote is, due to updated licensing arrangements, the Discovery content removal plan for December 31st, 2023 is no longer occurring. And they finished with with the lovely saying that we love to hear from our corporate overlords. We appreciate your ongoing support and feedback. So basically, Sony caught a lot of flack, and they're reversing their decision for the moment, waiting till the heat dies down, and then a couple months down the line, they're going to still remove the content like they originally planned. This is a tried and true tactic. We've seen it before, where they'll do something, they'll get backlash, they'll renege on it, they'll reverse it, hoping, and then they'll just wait till people forget about it, and then do what they wanted to do in the first place. So, I've kind of given the synopsis on the first article. I'd like to hear from you guys. What are your opinions? You know, I think we can all agree this isn't good. This isn't like yay one for the consumer, but I'm just curious to hear what you guys have.
Okay, I guess I'll kind of chime in there. Um, this is a perfect example as to why I advocate for physical media. I mean, uh, when it comes to something such as digital media, it isn't tangible. It isn't something that you. It's something that you absolutely did purchase. However, it isn't tangible for you. It's not for you to have on your person, essentially. So anything could happen. It could get lost into the digital ether. Companies such as Sony will try to, as Gunnar eloquently so put it, renege on their decision and decide to pull it off of their shelves where you don't have the opportunity to get it, or overall just take it away from you. These were quite the concerns I've had ever since, how long ago when they started incentivizing pushing digital content for the most part. Um, it just really sucks that they utilize this just to uh penalize people and kind of like in a sense try to um gain more wealth. I mean, that's pretty much essentially what it is. Like, what is the issue with people purchasing digital content and owning said content? um Again, they did state the whole thing with the licensing rights or whatnot, but if I feel as though that the properties of owning physical media should correlate the same to digital media. Once you purchase something, it should be yours, unless they specifically state that it's a rental or otherwise. Um, that's why I like, if any game, because that's currently the media that I purchase as of right now. Hopefully I can kind of like explore other avenues such as DVDs and Blu-rays and things like that, but my primary focus at this moment is games. um, I focus on physical content because I know that there's a longevity to it. I know that I will own it forever as long as it's well kept. um, and although it is a huge hindrance of having it in your person where it takes up a lot of space. For those of you who watch my streams, you guys see like the background, it's pretty significantly a lot
A
of space is
lot of stuff
significantly
going
taken.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on, but at least 10, 15, 20 years from now, if I decide to take something off the shelf and play it, there's a 95% chance that item still works and I'm still able to play it. And if not, I'll be able to take it to someone that can somewhat repair it. I've done it with the Pokemon games where the CMOS battery, for those of you who don't know, the CMOS battery affects your save data, and it also affects the time zones within the game. Like, if like specifically for, as an example, Gold and Silver, they had like day and night. The CMOS battery affects that. So if it dies, you're pretty much losing your save data, and it can't really specify the time within the game. Um, I took that to a shop, and they were able to replace it. And now the game works brand new. I can save my game as I used to, and that's pretty much it. Um, so, anyways, before I go on a ramble and the whole entire rant, this is exactly why I fear owning any type of digital media, because anybody with thick ass glasses would have been able to see that this was coming. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. What say you, Kong?
It's not much else to say, right? Like, well, when me and Gunnar first spoke about this whole issue when it first cropped up, like, we sounded like broken records, and we were just like, this is why physical media is super important, and why, if you're going to support digital media, you have to accept the negatives that are going to come along with it, or use it sparingly. And I've decided to just go with the latter. Like, obviously, I still download stuff. I have a Steam Deck and I have other devices that require digital distribution of content, like my PC. My PC doesn't have a disk drive because no PCs have disk drives anymore. You have to download your updates. You have to download your drivers. You have to download your software. That's just a part of the modern times, and I'm okay with that. But when it comes to your entertainment content, and even programs, like I think it's important to find ways to like back up your programs. Like, I still use Word from like 2007 because I feel like it's superior to everything that's available now. So I have that on like disk, and whenever I need to upload it, like I have it on my hard drive, but I also have the installation disk, and I have a USB DVD
nice.
drive.
Okay.
Yeah, which is very beneficial because the current software is cloud based, so you have to pay monthly just to sustain having those applications. So that's brilliant.
So I think it's important to have everything backed up and saved, and it's like this might be a weird analogy, but it's like having access to, like, with current times, we have access to everything, right? We can buy anything and have it within a day's time. But if I need a knife to cut something, it's best that I just have a knife on hand, right? Whereas, I could just buy a knife online and it'll be here tomorrow. It's like, well, that's not solving your problem right now, right? So my logic has always been, if you could save the tools and save whatever on the side and just have it ready for when you do need it, it's within arm's reach. That's probably for the best. I've operated that way for a long time, and people have called me hoarder. Like, I'm a hoarder. I'm just taking up more space, but I'm usually prepared for whatever situations pop up. So
Yeah,
that's the benefit. So anyway, Sony backing up on this, backpedaling on this, doesn't surprise me at all. This is just like a PR stunt. This is just to calm everybody down. And they're gonna, I mean, they've already admitted that it's eventually gonna go away. It's just now that you have somewhat of a warning. Listen, it won't be more than, it'll be about 3 years maximum that we'll keep this content up. After that, it's gonna go away. Yeah. You've been warned. At that point, they're not gonna like backpedal anymore. But this just goes to show you that they can just instantly take things away, and unless people scream or bitch about it enough, they're not gonna do anything about it. Because if enough people didn't say anything, if this wasn't reported on, if people didn't have who knows, like if people decided to like potentially sue Sony, right? Who knows? That might have been on the table, right? And so Sony was like, you know what? Let's instead of having all these like suits to deal with, right? Let's just maintain the service. Let's pay Warner Brothers whatever they want just to keep this deal going for a little bit longer, and then by then in 2 years people will forget about it, and we'll just move on.
It's usually what happens.
I'm pretty sure that's the play, and it's smart play. I don't blame them for doing that. I would do the same if I was in their shoes. But again, this goes back to what we've been saying for like what feels like forever. Physical media is ideal. It's more expensive. It has an upfront cost. It does cost a lot to like buy these DVDs and all these like shows, and then there's the space element. So I get it, right? It's not practical for many people. But if you can do it, if you could swing it, I think it's in your best interest.
Yeah, and if you're comfortable with this, just realize that this is this could happen at any point. It can happen to your game, your television show, your movie. It can happen to you. It'll affect you at some point. And if you're cool with that, well, I mean, there's not much more any of us could say. So,
yeah,
that is
Yeah, and the counterclaims that I hear all the time from people who disagree with the whole physical media thing, who believe it's just a way to hoard, and that's true to a degree. There are some people who do get like overboard and they just start hoarding things. That's true, right? And I'm guilty of that to a certain degree. Like sometimes I'll get a little overboard collecting, and they'll go, well, what if you have a fire? What if there's a flood, right? Like you're gonna lose all your stuff anyway. And that's true, but the likelihood of that happening is far less than some corpo or some corporation deciding, you know what, we're cutting you off. That's more likely than me experiencing a house fire or something like that. So I'd rather take my chances.
Yeah, like from our perspective, we're dealing with an anomaly, whereas from their perspective, they're dealing with intent. Like these companies have the intention of taking these media away from you, hence why they have it in digital content. Sure, they project the positives behind it, but the negatives are we actually control it. Every time that we start up a new device or a new app or something, there's a lot of stuff that you have to read prior to that, and I'm pretty sure some of it is like, hey, we have the rights to take your shit whenever we feel like it. But the problem is that we're so eager to get to the content that we look over all these things. At least with us purchasing physical content, we can bypass all of that. We can, not have to worry about reading all the fine print, and we'll still have things our stuff that belongs to us. So, it's a give or take thing.
Whoops, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. But yes. Yeah, pretty much, same song and dance over here at Logical Gamers. Physical's the way to go. I just thought this was like a good bookend from the first episode that me and Kong did where this situation cropped up. I figured, hey, look, there's an update on it, so why not throw it in? But yeah, it's the same thing we said, physical all the way. If you so, on to the next article for the evening. This one's a funny one because it's coming from our boys at Bethesda with our boy Todd. It just works. Apparently, it is not just working for Starfield because apparently it has lost 90% of its player base in roughly 4 months of its lifespan. Not good, TLDR. So, this is coming from our people at Reddit, so only the smartest individuals. No, that's just a joke. That's a Reddit haha funny. But apparently, Starfield had a all-time peak of around 330,723 players about 4 months ago, and the current player count as of the article is a measly 14,000. So, needless to say, Starfield is not doing good. And currently, Fallout 4 has, at the time of this recording on November 10th, had around 16,512 players to Starfield's 14,164. And Fallout 4 came out in 2015. So, pretty much Starfield is not doing well. It is not retaining players. Recently, there have been major modding communities that have basically just said we are dropping and we are not finishing mods that we had planned for Starfield because, according to them, the game is just boring. There is no point to modding the game because the base game is boring. And this was a big hyped up game from Bethesda. This is the first major release after the Microsoft acquisition of Bethesda, which was a big thing or seen as a big thing at the time because Bethesda, they make the Elder Scrolls games. They produce the Fallout game. Right? This is a long-standing franchise, a lot of goodwill behind it, a lot less now than in the past, and it is not looking good for Microsoft's big acquisition because people don't seem to care about this game. From everything I've seen, it just feels like Fallout in space. It just doesn't seem an interesting game. It's had plenty of problems in terms of its common Bethesda bugs, its performance, and when this game is pretty much locked to Xbox and Game Pass, you had to perform big, and it is not performing. So, before I pass it off to these gentlemen, yeah, pretty much TLDR, Starfield isn't doing good. It's lost 90% of its player base. And Bethesda and Microsoft, to an extension, they still feel confident about the game. They're touting that there are expansions and updates that are planned for Starfield that, in their eyes, is going to bring back the community. I press X to doubt on that one, but we'll see. So, thoughts about Starfield seemingly failing?
Whew. Well, this is a prime example of the saying, it's not where you at, it's where you're going. And the reason why I say that is due to the fact of Skyrim, which had an all-time peak of approximately 70,000 players. Starfield had more, almost by like 200,000. And as of right now, there's almost 7,000 players that are still playing Elder Scrolls more than they're playing Starfield at this very moment, which is insane. It's very disheartening because I have not partaken in any Bethesda games. So I've never played any of the Fallout series. I never played any of the Skyrim series. So I figured that Starfield would be my introduction into the Bethesda, realm. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So I did purchase Skyrim. I did purchase Fallout. Maybe sometime last month. with the intent to play those games, and I guess I'm going to have a way more better experience because there's more players, there's more things to do based upon what's being said about Starfield, and I haven't heard about any of the other series being boring. I haven't heard any bad things pertaining to Fallout 4 or Skyrim, except the traditional like things are a bit buggy in the beginning, but they have a fan base that decides to fix everything. And what made it even more alarming is that for Starfield, that the mods are deciding to pull out. They're
Yep.
deciding to not even partake in modding the game because they feel like it's counterproductive.
It's
It
not.
doesn't make any. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, it's essentially not worth their time because let's just preference this that these are single player games, so
Mhm.
it's not uncommon for their player base to drop off because once Joe Schmo beats the
Everything.
campaign,
Yeah.
yeah, he tends to move on to another game. But the thing with Bethesda games, Skyrim and Fallout and the games of that ilk is that the modding community, that's what keeps these games alive. That's what keeps it relevant, right? They add their own stories, their own little mini expansions, maybe new guns, new characters, and that's what keeps the game going. And when you have the modding community that is basically saying, I ain't interested, that speaks volumes in just like how like where your game sits with the community. Like they don't care about it. They think it's trash. So like that's pretty big when like the modding community that's so invested in games like Skyrim and Fallout literally say, "Nah, dog, I'm good. I, I'll go make another Skyrim mod probably."
Yeah, and I'm not sure what it is. From what I've been told, is that those games typically play the same. They're just in a different type of world. Like Fallout 4 is open base, where Skyrim is open base. Fallout 4, if I'm not mistaken, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong if y'all played it. It's more of a post-apocalyptic setting, whereas
Yeah,
Skyrim is
yeah.
more like medieval, like dragons, mythological creatures, and whatnot. But they essentially have that same premise, that same build, where you're open world, you run into a bunch of NPCs. There's an abundance of things to do, and from what this article is saying, that Starfield is lacking, which is very disappointed because it's about being in space. It's futuristic. There should have been plenty of planets to discover, plenty of different types of life forms and whatnot. But I guess it fell short of that. Um, so like the mods, I won't be wasting my time playing this game. Maybe in the future, which I could see. I'm gonna be a little more on the optimistic side, Gunner, in terms of this because I do know that they tend to build up these types of games. Like Skyrim and Fallout, they do build from the base game. So maybe there will be some revitalization of Starfield. Who knows? But I will be on your side where it's like I'll wait till that actually happens. Not gonna hold
Yeah.
my breath,
I mean,
but
if
if it
if
does
if the
happen,
if the
I'm with
bones
it.
and the structure of the game is mediocre,
Mhm.
I don't see how official DLC from Bethesda is gonna change that. But I mean, anything's possible, but I doubt it.
I mean, let's see. I mean, look at the start of Final Fantasy 14 and then how that got revamped. So you never know in this day and age if they really do care about their game and they care about the fans. Um, I mean, the big wigs might have them on a tight leash, but if that noose is a little loose, then maybe they might produce some better content. Who knows?
Oh no.
All right, so numbers don't lie, and I'm not a big math guy, but I am a big numbers guy, because I believe numbers do illustrate certain truths, and in some cases, truths that are difficult to look at. So, if we look at the chart provided by the article that we're looking at, which we'll link in the comments because we're not allowed to link in the description anymore for some reason. Um, their peak, which was 4 months ago, was 330,000 players. Their 24-hour peak right now is 16,000, and players right now is at 14,000. This game is a new release game. It's been talked about for the last 5 or 6 years, right? Because they revealed it, I think, at the end of the PS4, cycle.
Yeah, I believe.
Um,
Yeah.
And while you guys were talking, I was listening. I was just gathering my thoughts and getting this prepared. A good game that came out a long time ago, Monster Hunter World, has an all-time peak of 334,000, which was 6 years ago, which is when the game came out, which is similar to Starfield's numbers. 24-hour peak is 121,000, and players right now is 63,000. This game is more than half a decade old. Why is it doing triple the numbers that Starfield is doing? Well, I could speculate. I don't know for sure, but Monster Hunter has a damn good gameplay loop. It is a fun game. That's it. Starfield, I don't think is. The numbers kind of showcase that. So it's not rocket science, right? Like the game is. I mean, it's just not complete.
I mean, if I may interject,
Sure.
All those numbers are correct. I think that the 24-hour peak might be a little skewed simply because.
Lost you there for a second.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
the numbers are skewed.
Okay. I said all the numbers are correct. I think that the 24-hour peak, however, is a little skewed with Monster Hunter Worlds because Wilds was recently announced. So I think that kind of pushed it. But
Sure.
other than that, yeah.
Sure. We'll give it to you. But even if we give that to you, Monster Hunter's still pulling higher numbers than Starfield.
No, absolutely. I'm just saying that, we just need to be cognizant of the 24
Sure,
hour
we don't want to
peak.
hurt Todd's feelings. Sure. The numbers don't lie.
We could definitely
if anything,
the
the skewed nature of Monster Hunter Wilds being announced, increasing World's performance, only speaks to World being that good of a game that people can go back to it and play.
Yeah.
It speaks to the hype, the real hype, not the manufactured hype, that Monster Hunter has now gained, and Monster Hunter Wilds has.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, which is not coming out until 2025, and guess what? It's probably not going to get pushed back because Capcom, as of late, when they have a release date, they usually stick to it. Especially with the Monster Hunter games, I don't think they've ever pushed a Monster Hunter game back.
Not to my knowledge.
They've never pushed them back,
not to my knowledge
ever,
either.
that I could recall.
And I think I know we're kind of digressing here or whatever, but I think one of the reasons
Hard
is
to not talk about a good game.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But I think what Capcom does with what the Monster Hunter team does is that they have enough assets built prior to the announcement, which allows them to be able to on track when it comes to the release.
Something that the other guy should probably do, right? Have a certain amount of the game built up before you start talking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or actually have gameplay, period, because we saw some things that was only cinematic based, so
Yeah, but even then, like Bethesda has ridden the engine and like the gameplay style of Skyrim and Fallout far too long, and that train or that car is just beat up. All the check engine lights are on that dashboard. They need to abandon it. They don't want to abandon it because they've gotten really comfy with the community will play test our game. The community will build stuff for our game. Every now and then we'll come in, we'll make an official expansion or an official DLC, and the modding community will jump on that and mod that further. But now that we see that even the community or the community at large has seemingly abandoned the game, like there is nothing for them to hide behind. Right? The game is just laid bare and is exposed for what it is, a boring cookie cutter game that is the same as Fallout 4, the same as Skyrim. It's the same game, but we don't have the backing of the people, pretty much, to justify the game's existence. Whereas Monster Hunter has a thriving modding community. There's modded weapons, there's modded hair, there's modded character armors. They even have modded monsters.
Yeah.
Right? Like from reskins to actual like.
And I want to comment on that because
Yeah, go ahead.
if we're comparing mod to mod, the Bethesda games have way more intricate mods than the Monster Hunter mods do, because the Monster Hunter mods pale in comparison. Because the Monster Hunter mods, while they're cool, like there's some reskins and of monsters and certain weapons and things like that, that's cool. But like, it doesn't add anything to the base game. The base game is still fantastic without that stuff. In fact, probably better. So the fact of the matter is, well, at least in my opinion, it's not the fact of the matter. It's just my opinion, and I think it's going to be a popular one. Bethesda games like Skyrim, like Fallout, and Starfield to a higher degree need the mods to be a better game, while Monster Hunter World does not need the mods. That's the distinct difference.
No, I agree. Yeah, because it's, and I think Bethesda has lost sight of that, and they think for a while they think, oh, people just love our games. It's like, to a certain degree, sure, right? Every day when I talk to people, they say their favorite Elder Scrolls game is always Oblivion or Morrowind, right? So people love like the Elder Scrolls lore and the franchise and the series, but it's always the modding support and the mods that come out of these things that keep these games relevant.
So,
and you know,
oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that Starfield doesn't have that, so the game's essentially dead in the water.
So here's my question, right? Because I haven't played any of these games. Could it be that, because typically, I guess we can all say that typically when mods decide to mod games, it's essentially to either make it more aesthetically pleasing or just functionally better. Can we?
It's different. Some people mod for aesthetics. Some people mod to create new gameplay experiences, and some people mod or patch the game to make certain things that don't run so well run better. So it's like a gambit. It's like a whole ecosystem in terms of mods and how it's applied to a game like Skyrim, for example.
Okay, because the reason why I said that is because it could be that they just got tired of doing Bethesda's work for them. Like, it's just, we helped you out with Fallout, we helped you out with Skyrim, you came out with Starfield, and now we have to do even more work. I think that's probably a correlation of them being just tired of modding the game. Like, they want to be able to just sit down, at least for the most part, and play a stable, functioning game that has a lot of content. And then later on, if they decide to mod things, then they would go on and do so. But I think that's what it is. I think one of the reasons is it's probably not enough content, and a lot of people have left the game.
So,
but it's also that them being, I think it's also them being tired of just.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. But when you look at like Skyrim or the Elder Scrolls, and then you look at the Fallout series, and then you look at Starfield, it's like, okay, so Skyrim, so Elder Scrolls has dragons and zombies and magical items and fantasy races like elves and Khajiit and the dragon lizard people. The name escapes me right now. So you have that. You have the whole fantasy trope. Fallout, you have like mutated monsters. You have power armor. You have like giant miniguns. You have mutated orc-looking people. So you have like the post-apocalyptic like weird kind of nuclear wasteland Mad Max style aesthetic. Starfield, you have guy in spacesuit, girl in spacesuit, like ships that you could kind of see in like a couple hundred, a decade or two being in the real world. It's like there is no fantasy hook in Starfield, whereas there is a sci-fi hook in Fallout or a fantasy hook in Elder Scrolls. There's none of that, so there's nothing to build off of. When like the bare bones of the game is just boring space flight simulator, it's like, as a modder, it's like, what can I do to add? There's nothing to add to it. What, do I make a cooler looking spacesuit now? I guess. But when you look at like what the bare bones of Elder Scrolls and what the bare bones of Fallout offers, and then
Mhm.
when you look at the bare bones of Starfield, Starfield's got nothing, man. And the modders see that, and it's just like, I can't make something from nothing. At least these two other games have some meat on their bones for me to pile onto, to feed the beast, so to speak, and like make all this content for. Starfield's got nothing. Nothing
Uh,
worth a damn anyway.
Well, I mean, to your point, can't build a house on a shaky foundation. So
Yeah, and you know,
It's also legacy.
Kong said it, numbers
It's
don't
also
lie.
legacy.
That
So Fallout has a legacy. There's a history. There's nostalgia. The Elder Scrolls has legacy. There's nostalgia. So like people are gonna be more motivated to work on stuff that they're passionate about because they're attached to the IP and to the universe and to everything that's contained in that said universe. Whereas Starfield universe, right? Starfield's universe is barren, like Gunnar said, but also there's no. This is the first Starfield, so there is no attachment. So if there's no attachment or nostalgia, people aren't going to be passionate to work on it because it's like, well, I don't care. So, and this is where we are. So,
yeah, and there's no initial hook to get people to care. There's like, oh, this is like a really cool IP. This like there's a lot of potential here. There isn't.
Mhm.
It's just like if you know what you guys see the screenshot of a guy in a spacesuit looking at a spaceship. That's Starfield. That's it. That's the just that's the gist of it. And then when you look at iconic images of Fallout and iconic images of the Elder Scrolls, it's just like there's no fair comparison. You can't it can't compete.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, TLDR, good luck to Starfield. They're going to need it for Microsoft's sake. I hope that purchase was worth it. Anyway, last article for the evening is a kind of a short one. It's pretty much straightforward and to the point, but it ties into a larger theme that I wanted to hint at, and we might make a video or a podcast about this later on, but we'll get into that when I get into the article. So, last article of the evening is Ghostwire Tokyo English subs quietly remove the all property is theft line. So, pretty much this game is kind of like a first person, reminded me of Skyrim, funny enough. First person kind of game that took place in Tokyo or Japan, and had to do with a lot of Japanese mythology. So you were kind of like fighting Japanese demons or yokai and onis, and you know, it had a lot to do with Japanese lore. I didn't play it because once I saw the gameplay, I just didn't want to play a first person magic game. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I might give it a try down the line. I'm pretty sure I can find it pretty cheaply now. But anyway, that's besides the point. So, in the English translation, originally, it had the I'm not going to try to say this is Japanese, so we're not even going to try. But it roughly translated into, well, I'm not sure. But in the English version, before the update, it used the common socialist line of all property is theft. And then recently, as of April, they've been retranslated to just be the direct translation from the Japanese version. So, the underlying issue that I talked about earlier in regards to things like this is that there is a kind of problem going on in the localization world, predominantly in the West, and I'll use like the United States as a primary example, where a lot of people who localize Japanese manga, anime, and video games are putting their own opinions and their own, let's say, political beliefs into the lines they're translating. So you get a lot of lines like this where it's like, oh, communism, property is theft. That's typically a socialist line. Or, where they start using modern vernacular like, oh, this character is being pretty sus. Or, I'm tired of the main character mansplaining to me. this is becoming more and more of a thing. And a lot of people are getting more and more annoyed of it because they just want direct translations. So a lot of people understand that the Japanese language and Japanese mannerisms are different from English. So prime example is a lot of vernacular in Japan uses suffixes like chan, and senpai and oni-san to like differentiate colleague, brother, sister, boyfriend, friend. That doesn't really translate to the Western countries. We don't really. You like if you have a brother, you just call him by his name. You don't call him, you know, Richard Oni-chan. We don't do that. But that's something to be expected when it comes to translating. But for the most part, when we expect translations, we expect them to be as one to one as possible. That's not what we're getting with a lot of these translations. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of give some perspective for the audience and perspective to you guys that this is kind of a symptom of a bigger underlying problem when it comes to translations from Japanese to English. And it's good to see that in the case of Ghostwire Tokyo, at least, they use the modern advantage of updating a game on the fly to kind of reverse it and put it back to what people want, which is a more direct translation. So, I know maybe some of you guys are more knowledgeable about this thing than others. It's mostly a problem if you watched dubbed like anime and stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, opinions, thoughts, if any.
Well, okay, so primarily, I'm pretty sure all of us unanimously play video games for the gameplay. However, me personally, I enjoy a good story within a game. Um, it's not what I prioritize over the game itself, but it's like a icing on the cake, so to speak. And this would absolutely annoy me if they were to not create a game that was originally in Japan in terms of like translations and not make it a one-to-one correlation in English. Like it would absolutely annoy me because you're deviating from what the actual script is. As you stated, Gunna, in the sense of like the whole prefixes and whatnot, sure, you can definitely take that away because like within our culture, we don't really, I mean, we do utilize it to a degree, but not as much as like, Japan or whatnot. But to take certain things and kind of like take certain viewpoints and push them into games, I think that's not a good thing to do. Now, if it's a game that you've created and that's the premise of your game and you want to, install that verbiage or whatever, fine, kudos, whatever. You're telling a story, it's your story, have at it. However, don't take what was what wasn't said and kind of input it in a game, you know.
Yeah,
Um
exactly.
especially for me who I appreciate, I watch both subs and dubs. I prefer like dubs, especially with comedy, right? Because like reading comedy is just not as funny as watching comedy and understanding the punchline and the language and whatnot. So I would kind of move more so to the dubs. So imagine the joke being 10 times funnier in sub than dub because they didn't want to translate it because they felt like maybe it wasn't appropriate, or maybe it'll be funnier if we were to change certain lines of it. Like, no, don't change it, leave it as is. The creator had it set a certain way, so translate it as close to the original as possible, and that's it. you know I, it just sucks that people do this, but kudos to Ghostwire Tokyo for removing it. It shows that they're trying to, although maybe a lot of people might not be interested in the game or whatever, but it shows that they're taking what the creator of this game put in there seriously, and they took it out. So shout outs to them for that. If anything, that will give me more incentive to want to play it because they're doing things like that.
I mean, it could also be to cover their ass because there was no this correction on the translation wasn't included in the patch. It was just kind of silently done. So, it could be like, this is pretty stupid. We don't want to catch any heat, so let's kind of just silently update the game and remove this modern day vernacular from the subtitles. But hey, I mean, just be careful who you guys hire to translate your game, and you see it with some companies where they basically tell you, hey, look, we just need you to translate. I don't need you to put any of your feelings, any of your personal vernacular. Translate it from Japanese language to English. That's your job. So I hope that catches on more and that just goes back to how it used to be. But another crazy thing in our current crazy world. So
yeah.
This is an interesting one because it's kind of like a throwaway line in the game. But it's just an example of what you guys mentioned already, where they have certain people of certain beliefs injecting their own beliefs into an already existing script. And while I get censorship, right? If we look at Japanese anime, for example, when it's brought over to the stateside or to the West, localizers will edit certain things out or intentionally mistranslate certain things in order to make it more, air quotes, acceptable for the culture, right? Because there are certain jokes that are really there's certain humor that works really well in Japan that doesn't work here, and so it doesn't translate well. So it'll be adjusted to fit what would be more acceptable for Americans or for Westerners in general. So that's one thing. But what this was I'm pretty sure somebody, a part of the localization team, who has certain beliefs or certain opinions on capitalism, and whatever your opinions are on that is your opinions, and that's fine. But what bothers me is this game was sold in a capitalist state, and that capitalist state is what paid for this game to exist, which employed the people who worked on the game top to bottom. So it's you're criticizing a system in which you're benefiting from to propel a message that is opposite to what is paying your bills. So it's kind of weird. It's stupid. It's hypocritical. It's people tweeting on their iPhone about kids in Africa starving or sweatshops in other countries, right? And it's you're using the very products that are causing the thing you're complaining about.
Sweatshops are bad. Tweeted from
it's just shut the fuck up. It's
like an oxymoron.
Yeah, it's listen, you could have morals. You should have morals, right? You should have standards. You should have beliefs, positive beliefs, hopefully. And it's okay to stand by them, but you also can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't do the dance and then be well, I'm still gonna benefit from this other thing that I'm against. It's just so stupid to me. It's so dumb. So I don't know. That's just weird to me. It's just dumb. But like you said, Gunnar, be careful who you hire, and that's a message to the people behind building the localization teams for these games that come over. Maybe less of that type of person and just people who are just going to do the fucking job and just just keep
wild
it
concept,
just
but
find the right qualified people and put them on the job, and that'll be that, right? And you won't have these problems on your hands because something like this, if it was more apparent or if it was in a game that was a little more popular, this could have been a backlash, right? And Ghostwire Tokyo already didn't do super well, even though they're working on a sequel, I think. But the game didn't meet its expectations. It was definitely overhyped, and it didn't quite deliver. It was definitely a whimper of a game release. So they can't afford any negative press or publicity, because it will affect the future projects that
The
they
second
have.
one.
So that's probably why they did it, just to avoid, like, let's not piss anybody off. Let's not rock the boat. Which is why they didn't shine a light on it. But fucking the internet being the internet, it was caught.
They find a way.
It's now we're talking about it, but a bunch of nobodies on YouTube. So anyway, I don't care personally, but it's annoying, and it's another reason why I've kind of like decided to just slow down with modern gaming.
Yeah, it's very jarring too, just from a player perspective when you're in a world. I know Ghostwire Tokyo took place in like modern times, so you could maybe see that but not from Japan. Like it was these are Japanese people in Japan fighting Japanese demons. You wouldn't hear a Japanese person going, fucking ownership property is theft. Now, if I was playing a game that took place in the USSR during the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe, okay, I would be like, hey, okay, communism, USSR, that makes sense. We're not doing that. This is just somebody at in front of a computer at a localization desk going, well, capitalism is evil and property is theft, so I'm going to let my opinions be known. Nobody wants that. Nobody's interested in that. Stop doing that. You should lose your job. Quite frankly, I'm going to be that guy. You should lose your job if you're putting your own personal opinion in a game. And like Esoteric said, it's not your game. If it's your game, do whatever you want. I hope the best for you. We'll see what your sales numbers look like. But if it isn't your game, if this isn't something you're making and you're being hired to do a job of translation, do your job. Simple as that. Just do your job.
Yeah, especially if it's a job of trust, right? Because I'm pretty sure the person who's hiring you to do this job probably 9 times out of 10 don't even comprehend the language or what's being translated. They just trust you to just take whatever is here and make it there, so that we can understand it. So for you to do that, you're basically, you're untrustworthy, and it shouldn't be done. I mean, if you wanted to implement something like that in the game, which probably why you didn't go this route that I'm going to suggest, because you knew it was wrong, you could have went to your higher ups like, hey, I think this line will sound better or something like that, which they would have told you no.
Right.
Me personally, I'm completely ignorant to the saying. Like, I'm not like one of those history buffs, or I don't deal with the social stuff. I'm just in my own little bubble. I tend to just pay attention to what's going on in my life and the people around me, and whatnot, for the most part. So that this would have completely flew over my head. But kudos to those who are enlightened and realizes that things like this are very harmful if exposed to the right people, or the people who are what's the word I'm looking for, easily prone to this type of rhetoric and verbiage and things like that.
Maybe.
Yeah, easily influenced. Shout out to those people for realizing this and addressing it. Again, this type of stuff should not be put into games. This is a media for us to enjoy, kind of get out of the real world, unless the game is premise within real world troubles and whatnot. It's for us to relax and enjoy and live through the eyes of whatever protagonist we're playing as. So just pretty much TLDR, leave that shit out of this. Leave stuff like that out of games, please.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that wraps up our L's in modern gaming for this week. Hey, look, I'm trying to make this a series. I think.
What do you think, is gonna be a weekly?
We will have.
Might be
maybe weekly or monthly.
Huh?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's the AAA gaming industry. Some fucking dumb shit is always happening, so we'll see. We'll keep it monthly for now. If you guys watching, listening, if you've listened this long and you like it, you think it's cool, it's funny, you have your own takes, your own articles, hey, post them in the comments. Let us know if you like this.
Yeah.
It's just something we could play around with every now and then because I find it funny, and there's a lot of bad L's
Or
that
provide us some topics as well to
yeah,
like,
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, well, anyway, on that note, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me tonight. Yeah, pretty much all the YouTube stuff. If you like, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We read the comments. We appreciate the comments. Good, bad, and ugly. We're big boys. We accept them all. Like I said, if you have any opinions, any topic ideas that you think we should take a look at, let us know. We might cover it. Anyway, yeah, like, comment, subscribe. We drop new videos every Wednesday for you guys. We do a variety of topics here. Some modern stuff, some stuff from our childhood, stuff that isn't directly related to video games, like hobbies and whatnot that we have. So we run the gauntlet over here. We have our socials. Make sure you check that out. We've got the Discords, we've got the Twitters, X. We've got the Facebook. We got all that good stuff. Sorry. Old vernacular that dies hard. We got it. So if you use it, we've got a presence there. And Mr. Esoteric is our resident streamer. He streams on the Logical Gamer's main channel. Usually streams every Monday and Friday. He does tend to pop up. Yeah, there he goes. He does tend to pop up every now and then with a random stream. So hey, if you want to be informed, get on the Discord. He usually lets us know on that. Get on the Twitch. You'll see the notification pop up. Me, Kong, we're usually, any one of us, all of us, we're usually on the chat every now and then, watching their streams. So hey, look, get to interact with us there too. I think that's about it for the YouTube stuff. So again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you like what you see, make sure you follow us so you can get more content. On that note, you guys have a very good night. Thank you, gentlemen, for this topic, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.
right, peace.